Well, welcome to the On Cinema studio up here at Sundance, Damon, Sabaah. Firstly, congratulations on having the film here. It's a great achievement by itself, right? Tell me, what's the title, Whose Streets? What does that mean to you?
To me, whose streets is a question. The answer is our streets. It's about public space in the context of so much of our space being privatized. It's also about, you know, this kind of call to action. Are you going to be a part of, protecting our democracy and making a difference? So I really like the fact that the title is a question because the film is a question.
Yeah, and for you, Damon, what's it?
I think Sabaah summed it up. But just to reiterate, it's a call and response. It came from a chant that was going on out in the streets. So it means something very special to the people that were there, and it asks a question of society in general, like whose streets, who's being protected, who, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a question to society.
And I think I would just add that, like, it's also a question of, who does the law protect and who has the right to protest and who is seen as an equal citizen in this country. So all of that is kind of rolled up in the title.
Yeah.
What was the moment of awareness? Obviously, you're from Missouri. Were you living in Missouri when the Michael Brown Jr. incident took place? What was the first awareness you had of it, and what truth did you seek out at that time?
Well, I remember I was in a municipality that neighbors Ferguson, and I was actually at an expo. I was teaching kids. I'm an artist, and I was teaching kids an art workshop. And a friend of mine who was also doing it, he was watching social media, and he walked over to me and he said, this kid just got shot in Ferguson and people are gathering. So this was before people was using the word protest, anything. It was just like people were gathering.
Yeah.
And I didn't even really understand what he meant by that people were just gathering in the streets. That was the first time I heard about it. I went home and it hadn't sunk in the way it did in the following days. And then I saw how more and more people were out there, and how also the police response and the police and just the militarization of the police was just outrageous to me. And so I decided to go over with my brother like the third day, and I just went out there, and I was out there ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like that's the thing. It's like that police response was just the depiction of it in the film, where you're being taken almost like from a first-person account, like onto the street and seeing, okay, here's a bunch of people standing there with signs, and then you turn the camera around and you see these armored vehicles as if we're in some sort of armed conflict, where only one side is aware that there is some sort of threat, or so it's like it's a game being played where only one person knows it's a game, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty frightening. And then to see, the dogs and that sort of response to these incidents is so out of whack that when you're watching it, you just can't help but feel sad that this is not only allowed to happen, but seems to happen all too frequently.
Yeah.
When you were kind of making the film and kind of deciding on the lens through which to tell it, how did you come to that kind of first person, just on the ground, this is what these people are going through type of storytelling?
Well, one thing that I told my editor from the very beginning was, there was a lot of footage out there of the chaos. And I told him we're not going to use this footage as B-roll. Even though some of the scenes may look the same, it's all in the street, it's big crowds of people, it's tear gas. We're not going to use it like that. We're going to be really specific and make sense out of this chaos, because that, I think, was the missing piece, is from a distance it all just looks like smoke and it seems like there's issues on both sides. But when you get up close and in it, you realize exactly what you just said. We're at war, and only one side knows that, and the other side is simply trying to come out and mourn and exercise their right to protest.
Yeah.
So that was a big kind of grounding principle in the way that we approach those scenes. And I think our editor, Christopher McNabb, who's really, really, truly incredible. I'm so happy that I've, gotten to be a part of his debut. He has a very keen sense of space when he edits. So he realized early on that he needed to pull that footage that felt like you were right in there and create that sense that you were a part of this so that people could see what it was like to come out, feeling sad, feeling upset, and trying to simply protest and get this response.
Yeah, I read one review that had a line just signifying that this is almost somewhat of an archival piece to some extent as well, in that if we want to know what it felt like at the time, this is a good lens through which to view it, because it is that personal, like, I can't even get across the street to get to my car, and you're trying to force me back into dangerous situations just to do something so normal and so quote unquote American in terms of liberty and freedom, right? And so it just seems so un-American in a lot of ways. We've got these marches going on right now, whether it was the Women's March the other day, where it feels like the next few years are going to be a time where a lot of people take to the streets, and there is going to be this kind of motivated expression of self and of community. For you, I'm kind of curious for both of you, like where that sense of duty was instilled, like who gave that to you, what made you so aware?
Well, for me, I grew up being taught history from the perspective of a black person. My mother was not afraid to expose me to the facts of this country that were not ever going to be given in a school. So from that sense of awareness, I realized that Black people have always been some of the most patriotic. We have always been at the forefront of, calling on America to finally one day be the country that it claims it is on paper. And so you have all these writers, Du Bois, Baldwin, Frederick Douglass, all of them so, tried so hard to really adhere to the values of this country and to persuade people to actually embody them. I think that's something that people underestimate, is that Black folks who protest are actually some of the most patriotic people in this country and are actually trying to hold this country to the standards that it set out for itself.
Yeah, and for you, Dan?
I personally, I came late as far as being born to my parents. So my parents are a little bit older, and like my father is a Black Panther, and my mother was a sharecropper. So like, I can't remember a time where it wasn't right up front for me, and I had an understanding from the beginning of who I was, where I stood in history, and where I stood in America, and how America thinks of me. And I don't know, duty. I don't know if that's the word. I don't think I have a choice, because I'm the target. You know what I mean? So like, it's literally survival. So it's just the way I've been raised to survive. So that's how I look at it. And the actions that I take, I try. I'm working for people that haven't been born yet. So yeah, I can't remember a time when it wasn't right up front for me and I didn't have to fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it was also like watching what unfolded next, whether it was Mizzou or Chicago, or Beyonce's halftime show, or Colin Kaepernick taking a knee.
It was a good year.
There's the amount of the depth with which it's now within the popular culture and within the media's awareness almost every day. Obviously, now that there's a new president in town, we're going to see whether that language or those conversations can continue to be at the forefront. What's your hope for the next few years?
Well, I think that, this resurgence of resistance that you're talking about is not isolated to just political resistance. I think you're actually seeing Black artists and a lot of artists of color awakening and claiming our power to culture shift. So you see it in narrative, you see it in all areas of art right now, and I think it's a combination of people recognizing that there is a voice that needs to be heard and has value, and us recognizing our power and our relationship to the world, and that people, for whatever reason, look to us as, to set the culture. They may not even like us, but they will like our music, They may not like us, but they like our style. And so we're stepping into that power and claiming that power. So I think you're going to continue to see storytelling that is imaginative, that is, that resists, that is coming out of people of color, that is attempting to reshape the imagination of this country.
Yeah, And then finally, I was like looking at the end credits, and you've got Dawn Porter and Marta Cunningham and Roger Ross Williams, and of course the great Stanley Nelson. All these people getting shout outs at the end of the film. Like, what role did these people play in helping the film get made?
Well, 2 years ago, I was a pre-medical student. So in order to go from that to premiering opening night at Sundance, there had to be a lot of support, a lot of mentorship, a lot of people putting their trust in us and allowing us to say, hey, this person believes in us, maybe you should believe in us too. And so all of those people that we thanked had some hand in propelling us. They believed in what we were doing. They really, it's just really a huge community of support. And I think the fact that this film got made, the fact that it got made in 2 years, the fact that it got made with our first time filmmaking team fully intact and not sold to, a production company or, hired out to people who've been doing it for years, I think it's really testament to the fact that the documentary community believed in us and came around us and saw that this was a story that needed to be told and decided that it was going to happen. And so all of those thanks are definitely due, and we're just really grateful.
Very cool. All right. Well, thanks for spending a few minutes with us, and congratulations on having the film here.
Thank
you.
Cheers.